and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 140th take, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show, an amazing show. I've been waiting to do this show for a very long time, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest. But before we get to proper introductions, I do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced earlier this week that they are now shipping the Undercrown Dojo Dogma Sungrown to Drew Diplomat retailers nationwide. They got to work on their alliteration. This is killing me. The Dojo Dogma Sungrown was announced during the DE Summer Takeover campaign, and it was highlighted on Freestyle Live Special Edition. The Underground Dojo Dogma Sungrown is a 5x54 box press Robusto by Drew Estate Master Blender Willie Herrera and Cigar Dojo Master Sensei Eric Gatormson for its bolder profile. The Sun-Grown Dojo Dogma features an Ecuadorian Sumatra sun-grown Kappa with Connecticut River Valley stock-cut cured sun-grown Habano binder and a complementing powerhouse blend of Nicaraguan premium filler tobaccos. One leaf of extensively aged Ligero from the Nueva Segovia region along the border of Honduras has also been carefully selected to enhance the intense character of this blend. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailers today for the Dojo Dogma Sungrown, which is now shipped to Drew Diplomat retailers nationwide this week. And also sponsoring tonight's show is Oveja Negra Brands, 4 unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation of cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissident, and Emilio are combining premium tobacco with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit ovejanegracigars.com to learn more. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 140th take. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you in, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome this guest. This has been a long time in the making. We'll talk about why in just a moment. So without further ado, tonight's guest is sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Welcome, Mr. Jeff Haugen of Crux Cigars. Jeff, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Bear. Thanks for having me on the show. Been looking forward to this for quite some time myself. So happy to be here, happy to talk to you, tell our story, and thanks again for having us.
Oh, Jeff, this is really my pleasure. You have, you have an idea because we talked about it before the show, but this is, for those watching, I was going to kick off a little bit different way. I know we're going to talk about our cigars here in just a second, but as I was talking to you about the show, you actually are a big part of why this show actually happened. And you were not necessarily aware of that, but give my audience just a little bit of the backstory on this. So a long time ago, you and we were visiting Michael's Tobacco of Euless, and we were actually in the humidor, and we spent an extensive time, great conversation, just talking about tobacco, not Crux cigars specifically, not cigars even specifically, just really in depth, like nerding out on tobacco. And I really, really enjoyed that conversation. And that inspired me to do the videos that I started doing in the humidors at Michael's, which of course led to Coop and I hooking up on Cigar Coop's Primetime Special Edition, and hence the creation of this show where I started my own brand. And so thank you. You're to thank for a lot of it. So I appreciate you for that inspiration, for Jeff, because who knows, if I hadn't had the conversation with you, I mean, I'm sure it would have come around to this eventually, but perhaps not the way that it did. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and tonight is the first I heard of that, so kind of cool. But as I told you earlier as well, I mean, the one thing that stood out when we had that conversation in Euless is you just couldn't get enough. Like, you asked question after question after question. If we had 4 more hours, we would have been in that humidor for 4 more hours. And I remember giving you a cigar. I said, hey, try the cigar. Let me know what you think. And I think it was maybe a day or 2 later, and I received a full length review of the cigar via text message. And I said, all right, this guy loves this industry. He loves what he's doing. And when I found out you had your own your podcast, your own show, I couldn't have been happier for you, because you, Coop, guys like you are the ones that make this industry better. They make us more excited to develop new blends, new brands. You guys do a great job talking about it in depth, and you know, I wish I wish you guys all the success, because you definitely deserve it. You're great for the business.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Yes, that means a lot to me, and I'm glad you weren't put off by my in-depth scary review via text message. So, you gave it to me. I took the assignment seriously, and so I wanted to give you a serious answer. So,
It was good. It was good.
But yeah, if you had given me more time, Jeff, we'd probably still be in the humidor. What are we talking about here? So,
That's right. That's right. Yeah, good day.
But again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we got a great crowd. Learn to talk. Really anxious to hear us talk about some great things about Crux cigars. So let's kick it off with what we're smoking tonight. What did you decide to light up to cleanse that palate after that really rich meal you had?
Well, yeah, like I said, I had. I'm not sure after eating at Buca's. I ate at Buca's for my niece's 16th birthday. So my wife and I took her out, took our kids. A lot of garlic in that food, very good. So what I'm really trying to do is cleanse the palate with some Dr. Pepper, and but what I'm smoking is the Crux Epicure, and it's kind of the cigar I start every day with is a Crux Epicure, and the Toro size specifically. It's smooth, it's clean, and I see you're smoking a Bull and Bear, which is probably a better choice, but for some reason I didn't have a cigar yet today, so I just kind of wanted to have an Epicure, and if we're on for a while, I may go and hit the second one with a Bull and Bear or an Epicure Maduro.
The Epicure Maduro is actually my my second choice for tonight, if we kind of get through that. But yeah, I've always gravitated towards this blend, Jeff, ever since I started smoking your cigars, and I've just really enjoyed it. I think it's masterfully balanced. We talked we joked around at the beginning because I was confused about a couple of pieces of the brands. I know a couple of pieces are undisclosed, but I was like, man, that sweetness is so quintessentially jalapa, and you're like, that's the wrapper, and it reminded me that it was the wrapper, but I love the spice, I love the sweetness from the jalapa. I just think it's just a really well balanced cigar that I've just always really enjoyed. And Coop will be proud of me tonight because I am smoking the Gordo Marblehead. So he's a big 60 gauge fan. So I decided.
Coop is I thought he was more of a Lancero guy.
No, I'm the Lancero guy. Well, that's funny because we have this huge battle, man, over it. Not that he doesn't like the occasional Lancero. He's not a Lancero hater for the most part. But I'm definitely not a big 60 gauge guy. I just never really have been. But there again, to the point I was just making a moment ago, there's something about it in this particular blend that I really enjoy. I always have. Like the other Vitolas too, but yeah.
Well, and that's why in that cigar specifically, in the 60 ring gauge, the Gordo, that's why we have the Marblehead finish on that cigar. That basically that Cuban 109. Because it's a softer feel. It doesn't feel like you're smoking a 60 ring gauge cigar. It kind of feels like you're smoking a 54, 55 kind of ring gauge. But that's why we did it for that cigar. And of course, you can cut a little bit off to get, a firmer draw, cut a little bit more off the cap, and you can get an easier draw on that cigar. So, but yeah, that's a cigar that, started off, it was doing okay for us, and in the last year, and I think part of that is with the rebrand, which I know we'll be talking about a little bit later. It's really kind of moved up the ranks, and it's one of our top selling cigars in our entire portfolio now.
I'm glad to hear it because I certainly wanted to continue doing well so I can continue to smoke them. So, but we mentioned our good friend William Cooper, and I would be remiss not to mention the elephant in the room. So you guys, we're going to get into the whole rebranding of Crux here in just a second, but before we do, you guys have kind of really released some cigars and stuff, and Du Connoisseur has yet to be put back onto the market. And as you know, William Cooper was a huge fan of that cigar. And so I got to talk him off the ledge every couple of days because you and I, the four of us spoke about it. You, Casey, and I, and Coop spoke about it last year's trade show that will be making a return. and so I got to make sure that he's not gonna, lose it. So just the Dew Connoisseur is coming back, correct?
Well, it is. I mean, I could joke around and say that it's not, but Coop did give it his number one cigar of the year. Was that 2 years ago now? 2 or 3 years ago? I don't know. Maybe he can chime in and let us know exactly. But which was a great honor to us. I'm a huge Lancero fan. If you're using great wrapper, binder, and you have some good filler, I mean, it's a great way to showcase. A Lancero size is a great way to showcase the cigar and the tobacco you're using in the cigar. It's a lot easier to cover some things up, some flaws, some different types of tobaccos in a larger ring gauge cigar. Not saying that we you know we don't use the highest quality in a 60 ring gauge cigar, but Lanceros can be a little bit more challenging. So to make them taste great, you just have to use great tobacco. I mean, it's a pretty easy recipe. But to answer the question, with the rebrand, the Deconnoisseur is one that is coming back. The cigars have actually been rolled for several months, and my cousin Casey probably has a better idea of how much age are on them. But that the next round of Deconnoisseurs that come out probably have an additional year worth of aging on them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so because it's a smaller ring gauge cigar, we did change the branding. Our first round of bands and the graphics and everything else was getting a little bit lost. That style was getting a little bit lost in a smaller ring gauge cigar.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so the band is going to have it's going to have there'll still be continuity with our other banding, other bands from other lines. It'll still have that bikini style band where you can still kind of see some of the tobacco,
Right.
but it's a totally different shape band, different look. It's turned out great, and so I would say within the next it shouldn't be 90 days, but 60 to 90 days, and it should all be packaged up and on retailer shelves.
Well, Merry Christmas to Coop. Fantastic.
That's our goal.
Yeah. 2016, by the way. I had to look it up. So
it was 16? Okay.
Yeah, 16. Yeah. So number one cigar.
Time flies.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. When you're having fun, for sure. Well, there you go, Coop. You can rest easy, and Merry Christmas.
Coop gets the first box.
There you go.
You'll get the second box.
Oh, okay. Sign me up. I'm good. I'm in. I love that cigar as well. I'm a huge fan of it. I was a huge fan of that as well. And
I know you're huge Lancero guy, so you got to get them. They're coming your way for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'm glad Garrett Robinson is actually in the room, because him and his partner Matt Ty, who hosts the show How About That Cigar, which you were a guest on a few months back, and I remember listening to that interview, and something caught my ear, and it was really kind of something funny. I have a obscure taste. I love film. I love movies. I don't admit what, I have 2 young kids now, so I watch a lot later at night. Unfortunately, I don't get to the theater as much. Even pre-COVID, I don't get to the theater as much as I used to. But you dropped a quote in the middle of that interview that was really interesting, and it caught my ear. So to give everyone context, it was about PCA and how, and you just to kind of summarize, you had some thoughts about that more people should be brought to the table, and you said not too many people, because as Tommy Lee Jones says in Men in Black, a person is smart, people are stupid. And as soon as you didn't quote him at first, you just said the line, and I was like, oh my God, that's Men in Black, and then you said it, and I was like, so it's really funny that we have a similar taste for quotes and stuff like that. Are you a big movie buff, or do you have like a weird selection of movies that you gravitate towards? Like, what's your taste there?
I like everything. I'm not a big sci-fi guy. Never have been.
Ironically,
it's not that I wouldn't watch one, but ironically, but Men in Black isn't like ridiculous, crazy sci-fi kind of thing. It was a
sci-fi comedy, yeah.
Well, it's a comedy, right? And
yeah.
so, I love comedies. By far, my favorite movies. Yeah, I used to be kind of a movie buff. I'd watch a lot of different movies. Like you, started, got married, started having some kids. The time to, watch movies. It's not like, yeah, you can take your wife. You can attest to this. Take your wife out to a movie now, and somebody has to watch the kids. You pay a babysitter, and gets kind of expensive. Pay a babysitter while you're sitting in a movie theater. So, I think most of the movies I've been catching up on, or I've stayed current with over the last 8 years, I would say 90% of the movies I watch are on airplanes, and
Right.
that's where you can get it in, and so you can work a little bit, watch a movie on my monthly trips to Nicaragua. That's where I get caught up and stuff. But yeah, I love it. And by the way, I love that quote. I mean, there's certain
It's
things that hit me in life that make a lot of sense, right? And I'm all for the collective of people and thought and input, and I think that's that collective voice is what gets you moving forward in a very positive direction. But sometimes you get too many people involved. That's why I always think about that movie, because yeah, a person is smart, people are dumb, and but yeah, I love that movie. It's probably the only time I've ever quoted it, though. It's funny that you picked that one up.
Oh, it's funny. When Scott Pierce did an interview that I was listening to, he quoted Young Guns 2. And I caught that too, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's from Young Guns 2. Not even Young Guns, like Young Guns 2, like just
Right. Yeah.
random
Right.
sequel of a random like early 90s Western.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah. Good
I
flick.
want to ask the stupid question of like, what's your favorite movie, Jeff? But like, what, like, grab me a couple of your rewatchables. Like it's on TV. You kind of drop everything and you watch it, or you watch at least a few minutes of it. You just gravitate towards it.
Yeah,
What's a handful?
over the years, I'm a little bit older, so over the years, there's been some movies that I've watched. I don't like watching a lot of movies a second time even, but there's some that like you say that anytime it's on, or you're just in a mood and it comes up on your screen, you're like, all right, I gotta see that again. It's been a year or it's been a month. I mean, it doesn't matter. But once again, most of them are comedies. So for several years, it was Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean,
Classic.
just a classic movie. And then similar to Young Guns, not Young Guns 2, but Young Gun. Tombstone has always been one of my
Oh yeah.
favorites. Wonderful movie. And in the comedies, I just I could watch Step Brothers every day. And Talladega Nights about once a month. You know, I'm a big Will Ferrell fan. I mean, he's funny. And,
Those
and my wife
two.
always gets grossed out because every movie he's got to strip down to his underwear, and she gets grossed out. But it's hilarious. They're good.
Step Brothers is one of those things I had to watch a couple of times, but yeah, it's in Talladega Nights. I'm all in on that. I just, if you're not first or last, I mean, just
Well,
great,
that doesn't even
great
make any
stuff.
sense.
That
You can
doesn't.
be second. You can be
You can be
third. You can
third.
be hell. You can even be fifth.
Yes. I'm gonna break. I mean, I'm a big Top Gun fan, but I'm gonna break a lot of Top Gun hearts here tonight. But that Tombstone is Val Kilmer's best performance, hands down.
Oh
Hands
yeah.
down.
Yep.
Hands down.
I agree.
So, well, awesome. Jeff, again, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I'm really kind of excited to kick off this interview. And we're gonna go into tonight's Major Point. As always, our Major Point is always brought to you by Wood Butcher, Maine. Introducing durable and attractive wooden creations to your kitchen, backyard grill, and home using native-made wood and other exotic wood species. Wood Butcher, Maine's products include butcher blocks, cutting boards, coasters, grill grade cleaners, and an ELOSOFUMAR favorite, the red oak cigar ashtray and cocktail coaster, plus many more. The Wood Butcher Maine's team for passion for food, the pine tree state, and craftsmanship of the highest quality show in absolutely every piece. So visit woodbutchermaine.com. Yes, that's woodbutchermaine.com to explore the current collection. So Jeff, we kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, and I'm really interested to kind of do a deeper dive into the decision to do the rebranding. I know we're a year into it now. We're over a year into the rebranding of Crux.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of before we kind of even unpack that, I want to go back just to the very beginning for one simple question. Where did the name Crux come from? What was the genesis? Where was the inspiration to even name the cigar brand Crux to begin with?
It was a long process. I mean, it wasn't something that just kind of hit us right away when we were searching for names. But I think like anybody that starts a business, whatever it may be, and they need to put a name, they need to create a brand. They put some time into it, and we put an extensive amount of time. So we had a panel of people. We had a number of different names that we were going with. It wasn't one right off the bat that just said, "Oh, it's got to be this name." So we went through a very thorough and rigorous naming session, where we were in our conference room for hours on end, coming up with names. And I think our first list, we had about 100 names. And one of the guys on the panel happened to be the best man at my wedding, my best friend, and a saying, he always has a saying that he always says, the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is this. And so thinking of him and what an inspiration he has been in my life, I said, well, we got to at least put that name on there. It probably won't go anywhere, but but we need to at least get it on the list. And for some reason, that kept making it to the next 100, down to 50, down to 25, down to 10, down to the top 5. And then when we got down to the top 5, we really started digging in and researching. That was probably more like the top 10. We really started researching these names. And of course, we had to look at names that could be trademarked. And so had to go through an attorney review and all that kind of stuff. But, Crux really just quickly surfaced to the top, not because it was available, but because, what it means. And, and Crux is, if people don't know, it's means a crucifixion cross. It's also a constellation, but in a modern day term, Crux is really kind of a modern day use of the word crux. It more or less means a crossroads, and we all face those in life, and and I always look at everything that we do. There's a path of least resistance. Let's call it the easy way. And there's sometimes is not necessarily a hard way, but the way that takes more work. And a lot of times when we come into decisions in our company, we probably, I wouldn't say overthink, but and Casey and I do a lot of this. We spend a lot of time talking about stuff, and we beat it. We beat it down and talk about it until we know for 100% certain that it's the best decision we can make at that time. And so, but that's what Crux means to us. It's really a crossroads, and it's not taking that path of least resistance, but you run into that crossroads, whatever the right way is, even though it may be a lot harder, do it that way. And, and so, and then tying in with, the crucifixion cross. I mean, my whole family were brought up, we're faith-based family. And so that was kind of an easy one to tie in as well. But we never want to use the word crux and faith to, promote, sell cigars. That's just another meaning. I wouldn't even call it a secondary meaning. But so we kind of have two substantive meanings for the name Crux.
Just more mortar to the foundation, I guess you could say.
Correct. Yeah. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
What a good way to honor your friend, though, in a non obvious way too, though. A turnabout phrase that he was used to, that he would say and would, what a great way to honor him. Since you mentioned it, we're going to get into your analysis, your analytical ways here in just a couple of minutes. I didn't know that it was that in depth from the beginning too. I got to ask though, when you have 100 names, there's got to be one that sticks out that was just like, God, why did it even make the list? It was just crazy. It's stupid. It was just funny or whatever. Is there one that you remember that was like, man, I can't believe that was on the list to begin with?
I probably not. Now it's so.
I'm putting you on the spot, Jeff. I was just thinking. Yeah. I was like,
we had another one that we really liked, and then we didn't use it. So the one that I remember was called Rain. not RAIN, but REIGN.
Oh, okay.
And so that made it to the top. It didn't make it through the trademark process
Right.
because see our business. There's so many cigarette companies, whether located in the U.S. or other countries, that have filed for trademarks through the USPTO, and so that one got kicked out. But but we got to a point where we were making artwork and bands and trying to create logos for it, and still like the name, but as far as a ridiculous name, I'm sure there was several. Particularly when people get tired, they just throw out anything at that point, and that's part of a naming session. Is everybody just kind of throws stuff, and you puke it all on a piece of paper or a whiteboard or whatever you're using, and then you take a break when the really stupid names start coming out, and because there are some stupid names.
Right.
Then you're like, all right, let's go eat lunch. I mean, this is going nowhere,
So what? Okay, like I said, we're a year into this, but I'm going to ask this question. Obviously, it's contextual because we're actually you're probably, this is process that probably stemmed to maybe even 3 years ago, but it's been on the market now for a year. But the brand started in 2012. So when you guys decided that you guys were going to push forward with this rebranding process, and we'll get into like I said, the intense analysis that you went into in just a moment, but why did you feel that now was the time, now being relative, but now was the time to do it?
Well, so yes, the process of building the Crux brand started in 2012, and that was an initial. That was other than with my retail background and going to different factories, whether it's the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Nicaragua, like a lot of retailers have. You have a good base knowledge doing that when you decide you want to do a brand. And I just remember one day I said, this is, it was something that was just for years, it was something that I wanted to do. And so I really started traveling to Nicaragua on a very regular basis, for the most part, a monthly basis, to Nicaragua. And I just wanted to learn about tobacco because we didn't start shipping our first cigars until 2014. And so I really look at it as the company. Yeah, we started the process back in 2012. We started shipping cigars in 2014 at the trade show, the annual trade show, and we had a lot of success early on. We opened up a lot of retailers. We probably weren't as careful back then and properly positioning our brand from market to market. Really having we understood that in order to have sales, you need distribution set up, but we didn't have the bodies. We didn't have the manpower, the woman power to cover territories and service them. We also had kind of we were selling from an empty wagon, and you've probably seen some of those brands where they can make some great cigars, but then a retailer orders them the next month and they're like, yeah, okay, well, it's probably going to be another 2 to 3 months before we get some more of those in. And I truly believe that you can't sell from an empty wagon. And so there's a number of growing pains that we went through, a lot of things that we had to learn, so we had 5 years of trying to build some relationships, learning everything they could about the business. And after 5 years, I thought it's a good time to kind of reflect on what we're doing, the good and the bad, and we started asking around on and listen, it's hard to pick apart your own brand. It's hard to pick apart the things that you're doing, particularly even the successes that you have. But I think it's important to constantly strive to do better. And so we had some internal conversations about how the brand looked on the shelf, how it was received on the shelf, and our branding initially got us to actually where we are today. I mean, the person that designed it, Mark Dom, did a fantastic job. He was a partner in the business back then. He was he made us look professional, and he did a lot of great things, and a lot of what he's done in terms of graphically and creating continuity between the sub brands. We use a lot of those. We use a lot of those systems to in our current branding as well. And certainly the icons, that hasn't changed. That he had created all those and that kind of stuff. But
the translating of information from the shelf talker to the box, I noticed that too.
Yeah, so we made a lot of changes, but we decided to kind of pick apart the brand. We hired a company to get some feedback in a focus group setting, cigar smokers and non-smokers, and we had them give us some feedback on our brand, and it was it cost some money initially, but the feedback we received was invaluable. And to sum it up, what we kind of learned is people like the cigars, they like some of the stuff that we're doing, but they couldn't read our logo. They couldn't, the cigars kind of got lost on the shelf. They just didn't stand out. And in a lot of humidors, it's a sea of brown. I mean, the cigar wrappers are brown, the cigar boxes are brown. There's just a lot of brown. And, and that works for some of the old time brands, but when you're a newer brand, we knew that we needed to do something different. And so this marketing company that we hired, Go Local out of Texas, actually Brandon Frakes.
I was going to say the Frakes
one of the owners of Industrial, and his partner Gabe. Gabe was the designer. I mean, he's the architect of all the new branding, and he had a clear vision of where he thought this brand should go. And so, we spent a lot of time. It took a good year of back and forth and tweaks and all that kind of stuff. And so they came out with a number of different ideas and how we should, do our cigar band. That's why, like I mentioned before, you have the bikini style. He says you got to see that. Crux is obviously a lot more legible, and we were looking for some branding elements that were clean, a little more, obviously more elegant and more timeless. Complete 180-degree shift from where we were before, which was a little harder logo to read. It had more of an edge to it. It was more medieval, Gothic. That's what it was. Like I said, that got us to where we were. But if we're going to build a company generationally, and certainly we try to build our company, we're planning on building a company by decade. We need some branding that could stick around for a while. And year 5 in any business is the time I feel you should really take a hard look at everything that you're doing. And if you can make some changes, that's when you make some changes. I mean, it's not easy to do, and it's expensive to do. Costs us a lot of money to tear everything down and rebuild it. But the end result is, I can tell you, is been nothing short of remarkable. It's the sales at retail are, our barrier of entries have been kind of broken down because of the packaging. You mentioned, the Vista on the inside of the box. It's got some flavor icons and some tasting notes, a strength meter. And we had designed that stuff actually, a long time ago. We just decided now to incorporate that. And you see, a company like Davidoff, they're using some flavor icons, but we actually had all that stuff designed before Davidoff even started doing flavor icons, so, but it's helpful at the retail level, and consumers spend a little more time. We have a lot of colors, I think, that pop on the shelf. So when you're walking through that sea of cigars, and if a retailer really kind of puts a whole set of cigars on the shelf, the consumer will stop by and at least ask some questions, or at least, if somebody's in the humidor helping, they'll ask some questions, and they'll learn a little bit more. So, then, our job with the new branding is to, find ways to enrich that brand. So we've really started putting together we're trying to enrich the brand by some photography, some videography. We've incorporated a lot of videos. You'll see a lot of videos. The retailers are receiving a lot of videos, and you'll see a lot of things moving forward. Even in our branding, there'll be all sorts of stuff that's coming out. I won't tell you too much right now, but we're making a huge investment in brand enrichment through technology, and everybody will see that for the next 2 to 3 years to come.
No, it's clear that you guys have really elevated the brands with this new direction that you're going. Like you mentioned, the multimedia, social media, the video aspect of it, the redesigned website, the redesigned packaging. I mean, you literally ripped it all the way down to brass tacks, and you rebuilt it all the way up from a marketing point of view and from a packaging point of view and everything. So it's this question sounds so elementary, and I know that you're a fan of the old branding, as I was as well. You wouldn't have launched it if you weren't. But before I ask this seemingly elementary question, I do want to applaud you something, Jeff, that I've always admired about you and Crux specifically. And I think it's pretty along the lines of like a company like JC Newman. JC Newman is notorious for, even when they announce cigars, they do not push something to market until it is absolutely perfect and ready. And sometimes that involves delays, and that can be frustrating sometimes for consumers and for retailers alike. But when it hits the market, it's perfect, right? It's the way it is, and that's something that I've always admired about Crux as well, is that certain things get announced, and you've announced certain things, but they do not hit the market until they're absolutely ready. The Epicure, what you're smoking tonight, is a great example. The Epicure Maduro is another one that actually went through a rebranding before the rebranding. You guys had a completely different name on it. We were kind of joking about before the show. I'm in possession of what was the Crux Gallant, which is now does not exist. So I'm never going to smoke that cigar because apparently it's a collector's item according to Casey. So that will never be smoked. But so again, here's my seemingly elementary question. Do you feel like there was something wrong with the old branding, or was it just simply, like you said, this was a rejuvenation that was necessary?
Well, once again, I mean, we actually had it tested. I mean, we had our branding live tested between cigar smokers and non-cigar smokers, and I think listen, we have a brand. We're proud. We were proud of what we had accomplished at that point, but we're really in the business of selling more cigars and getting more Crux cigars in the hands of cigar smokers, and so whatever that takes, whatever that means. Once again, it's not an easy way to go sometimes, and it's obviously a very costly way to go. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I just, at year 5, I decided that we needed to take a hard look at what we're doing. So if we're going to build a company that's going to be around for decades to come, do we have everything right? And the branding was just one thing, right? There was several other things that we broke down and started over, right? We used to use brokers to cover the country. We no longer use brokers. So we now have, we have 3 guys selling in the country. We have Casey and Casey Haugen, Tony Haugen, Sam Ventura, and we're looking for 2 more direct hires as we speak. So sales is different, distribution is different. We obviously changed our, we opened up a new facility in Boca Raton, Florida back in January. So we're handling all of our own distribution. We built, a great warehouse, a wonderful humidor. It's full of products. So, I mean, the branding was one thing, but we broke down the entire company and said, okay, we have 5 years in. Let's talk about what we've done well, and let's talk about what's not doing so well. And we truly did break it all down and say, this is our chance. This is our opportunity to build it back up. But the old branding, the simple answer there to your question is, when we actually live tested the branding, we just found out that people couldn't read it. They didn't know what it said. They don't know what the brand said. They didn't get it. They it got lost in the humidor. And so And there were several other comments as well. And so, yeah, there were some people that liked it, but it wasn't really a generational uh, type of branding. And what we have now, I think, is.
I agree. I was to be honest, Jeff. I think it was because it was nostalgia, and I think it was because I did gravitate. I was one of the early gravitators towards your brand, where I was kind of mixed about it. I kind of, it almost felt like an affront a little bit. Like I was like, but there was nothing wrong. Like why is this happening? And when I had the opportunity to sit down with you and Casey at last year's trade show, and then hear subsequent interviews and discussion points about it, I'm totally bought in on it, because I think what you were talking about, you mentioned decades, and that seems to be a word that creeps up a lot with you, is decades. You're
Mhm.
building something that you're not thinking, you're thinking about that old, what they call the old, almost Japanese mentality. We as Americans, we look, a lot of times we look at the next fiscal quarter. And the Japanese are trained to look at things in the next quarter of a century. And so you're thinking well beyond today, well beyond tomorrow, well beyond 2021. You're thinking about in terms of decades. And I think that is certainly accomplished by some of this. You mentioned the comparison to Davidoff in terms of the flavor components, and you said you had this already in the works before they started doing it. But one of the things that I do love that could be compared to Davidoff is, I was always a fan of the 5-pack Mazos that were in the box, because from a retail point of view, I could easily grab the Mazo and say, here, yeah, you like this cigar, here you go. And you guys kick that up a notch again with the boxes now within the box, the slide
Right.
top boxes, which are again, really elegant, really push the brand past the price point that it exists, right? Like this, when I hand someone the slide top box, this is a box that you think like, oh my gosh, these are $15, $20 cigars a piece. In reality, they're pretty much the same price they were before the rebranding process, if not the same
They are.
price. And so,
Mhm.
and they're very, very marketable, and they're very price conscious. They're not budget, but they're not, uh, the luxury cigar price either. They're perfectly, what I call perfectly priced. And but I love the slide top box. Now, when you guys were coming up with that, was that just another notion of, let's take the Mazda to the next step, let's elevate the brand some more? What was the thinking there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our old, our previous packaging, we had a wood box, and we still had 5 packs in the box. It's something we've always done, but as you recall, they were paper wrapped, and then those paper wraps were, they were, I'll use my phone as a model. On the top, it had a bunch of tape to it. It was kind of hard to get into.
Didn't like
Uh,
opening those, I admit.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, so, it's, once again, it was kind of I'd love to say that we'd take credit for it, but, it's really the designer that kind of came up with that. He said, because yes, that's what we did. We said, okay, we have the 5 packs in there. How do we elevate these 5 packs? How do, and so how can we aesthetically make them look better? And then can they have a function? And of course, now in a box, right? Now it's essentially a cardboard sleeve. It has some integrity, so people are throwing it in a jacket or a golf bag or whatever it is. I mean, it has a function. It keeps them from getting crushed. Also for refills to the retailer, so we don't have, the thing that drives you crazy, and you can attest to this as a working in a retail store, but you put all this money in these beautiful cigar boxes. Well, a lot of them just end up in the dumpster. There's only so many people that are going to cigar stores and taking them home to put things in, or making, cigar box guitars or purses or whatever they're doing. Right. So, it's, we wanted to up our game on the cigar box as well, but the because we have those 5 packs, when retailers reorder, they can reorder 5 packs, so the 5 packs we use, all the paper is recycled paper. So what we're finding out, and this was our hopes when we built the new packaging this way, is that less cigar boxes would end up in dumpsters around the country, and that's happening. And our 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 packaging cost actually has gone down
Oh, there you go.
because of it, because retailers love ordering we just sell them in refill bricks. So there's 4 or 5 packs in a refill brick. So our packaging costs have gone down. The retailers are happy. The freight costs are a lot less because you're not shipping the heavy cigar
Boxes,
display
right?
box that they go into, the dress box. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And, so it turned out to be a really good decision. So we'll continue that. You'll see that in all Crux brands moving forward. We'll always have the Duke Connoisseur that comes out next. That will come in a 5-pack as well. So yeah, it's done really well for us. And yeah, they're more expensive than, of course, a paper wrap. But to drive that cost down, like any printing, you just have to print and manufacture a billion of them, and then you get the unit cost down where you want it to be. So we had a lot of that stuff built in Costa Rica, and Plasencia and AJ in Nicaragua have a warehouse full of these 5-pack sleeves because we had to order a lot to get the unit cost down. But it's working really well.
So go back to my earlier point about you guys really making sure and really analyzing and making sure that things are perfect before they come to market and everything. The Gallant, now the Epicure Maduro, is a perfect example of this, right? And it was actually, and to my knowledge, that is the only cigar that has actually gone a quote unquote reblending, right? You couldn't find the right wrapper until you found the right wrapper. You just couldn't get your hands on it, to my understanding of the story, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And
So yeah, go ahead, finish your question.
no, please. So no, go ahead, take it from there,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. So the Gallant, I mean, we changed it from, we changed the word of the Gallant. There's another brand out there called like El Gallant. They thought it was too close to their trademark. So it was easy one for us to not really go after. We certainly didn't have any sales of the Gallant. We didn't have any distribution of it yet. So it was easy just to call it the Maduro, which is what it was. But yes, we did have a hard time finding, wasn't the filler and binder, of course, it was the right wrapper. And, so it was some conversations with AJ Fernandez, and I was, in his warehouse, and we were looking at different tobacco, and he had this, some of the best Mexican San Andreas I've ever smoked. And, and for, I don't know, good year, every time I went down there, I asked him to sell us some of that tobacco. And he just said, no, I'm not selling it to you. Then one day I was in his office in Nicaragua. He goes, Jeff, I'm not selling it to you, but I'll make you that cigar. And I said, well, that's interesting. So, we sent over our blend to him. They put it on the wrapper. They assembled the cigar, and rest is history. It's been a wonderful seller for us. Yeah, another great manufacturing partner for us.
Yeah, he said he has that conversation, I feel like, a lot. So about not selling tobacco to people.
Yeah, so, and we buy other tobacco from them as well.
And I know right now that the I guess the focus is kind of bringing back your brands to market with this new packaging that we've spent some time talking about this evening. But I mean, are there any future projects with AJ in the works, or do you feel like this might be a one-off with him?
Absolutely. There'll be projects in the works. The Plasencia family is near and dear. They're absolutely like family, and I've known the Plasencia family for many, many years. In fact, how I initially met the Plasencias, not just
Their
hearing
son
their
worked
brands
for you, right?
back in well, Nestor Andres, his brother Gustavo, worked in my retail store. It was a different retail store I owned back in the 90s, and his dad wanted, Nestor Senior wanted to have Gustavo get some experience working in a retail store, and through a mutual friend, this mutual friend, his name was Bill Bach, Indian Head Sales, but he was located in Minneapolis, and he bought a lot of tobacco and bundles and things from Nestor, and Nestor asked him, is there a retailer that you think would take my son in so he can kind of learn the retail side of the business. And so um, that's basically what happened. So on two, maybe even three separate occasions, I mean, Gustavo Placencia worked in my retail store for 30 to 60 days at a time, just to get to know what sales were like and what a humidor looked like and what an experience looked like in a retail store, brick and mortar retail store in the United States. And so when it came to finding a manufacturing partner, of course, we did a SWOT analysis on all the factories, the good and bad. And listen, there's a lot of great factories. There's a lot of great producers of tobacco, but that family I already had a connection with, and it was pretty simple, knowing that there was some history there, but Placencia is the largest premium tobacco grower in the world, right? So if we're truly going to build a company that was going to be around for a long time, we needed to team up with somebody that could produce volume if it ever got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And not that our company's focused on volume. That's not it at all.
But decades, right? Longevity.
Absolutely. We want to do this year after year, decade after decade. And so, we'll continue to increase our sales and our distribution and our output of product, assuming the quality remains the same. And so, the Placencia family, AJ, both of them, their quality controls, what they've done, and they're continually learning and hiring, outsourcing people to come in and take a look at their business to see how they can create more efficiencies within their business and better quality controls within their business. And that's just something I highly respect. And so they're always trying to get better. And it's showing in the cigars they're producing for people. It's showing in the cigars that they're producing for themselves and their own brands. And we're just happy to be a part of it.
So Jeff, to go back to the original question, and we'll use the metaphor that I used earlier, of mortar to the foundation. Has this brand realignment and this reconstruction and the new marketing and everything, has it changed the origin of what Crux Cigars is, or is it just simply another brick on top of the foundation to build what you're building for decades to come?
Yeah, well, it's definitely it's definitely strengthening a foundation. I mean, and we're such a young company. We'll be building a foundation for decades to come. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a span of 3 to 5 years. I think you're always looking at building a better foundation. You got to make repairs in your foundation. I mean, sometimes there's cracks in the foundation. They have to be repaired. And if you repair it, you want to make it stronger than it's ever been. And so, the rebrand is something that allowed us to feel it's definitely made a huge impact. We see it, firsthand in the sales, our barrier of entry in the retail stores with our sales guys. We're having a tremendous amount of success first attempt in opening new accounts. More importantly, what we're seeing is our sales continuing to grow month after month in the retail stores that are carrying the brand. So it isn't a order once and forget about it, or order second, 3, 4 times. I mean, we're getting weekly or monthly orders from every retail account that's currently carrying the brand. And so, we kind of know that we made a good decision on this rebrand. So it's going well.
I like I said before, Jeff, I totally agree. I'm bought in. I think it looks fantastic. I love the colors that you choose, even the Epicure, that has the classic red brand, red brand. Everyone has a red branded cigar, it seems like, but that certainly, like you said, it definitely they all pop on the shelf, and you guys really accomplished what I think you were setting out to. And so I have to say hats off to you on that. So that kind of moves us into our midway point here, and I've got our segment here that I love doing we talked about this before the show, and this is our one must go. And of course, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring Louisiana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. So for people in our audience who might be joining us for the first time, this is a concept that, basically I present Jeff with 3 things and he's got to kick one to the curb. So it's got to go. One must go. So I usually curb this around my guest, and self-proclaimed, even though Jeff and I have had some pretty in-depth, lengthy conversations over the years. Unfortunately, Jeff, I don't know you as well as I wish I did. And that's obviously changing a little bit tonight. But so I chose a little bit of a generic subject tonight, and I'm a fan of. I'm not a sweets guy. I'm more a fan of the salty snack, salty, savory kind of thing. Spicy, like spicy things. So I went with a snack trio tonight for you. So one must go on this, and I run the risk because I don't know if you have any allergies. So this could be interesting if you do. But the choices are
penicillin. That's it.
Oh, my wife too.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So as long as it's not blue cheese, we're okay.
We're
any kind of mold I can't tolerate.
Sounds good. Sounds good. No mold here. So here are your choices for snacks. All right. So popcorn, potato chips, peanuts, and I'm going to participate too. So popcorn, potato chips, peanuts, and the potato chips and these are all kind of flavorless versions of the snack. So you can think of whatever flavor you particularly like in each of these snacks, but one's got to go. Popcorn kicks to the curb, potato chips or peanuts. Which one's got to go, Jeff?
It's an easy one for me. Not even a question.
Not even a question. What is it?
Well, well, you got to guess a little bit. About me. Which one would it be?
Gosh.
Got a 33% chance.
Well, if you can't do mold, gosh, man, I gotta. I'm gonna, even though I was kind of joking about the allergy, I'm gonna guess peanuts. Peanuts goes to the curb.
Potato chips.
Potato chips. Oh, okay.
I'm not a potato chip guy.
You're not a potato chip guy. Oh, wow.
No, Doritos all day.
All day. Cool Ranch or like original, or is one of the other like
spicier nacho.
Spicier nacho. Have you ever had the salsa verde Doritos?
I have. It's no
awesome.
Spicier nacho. So you take, and all you got to do is you take a bag of spicier nacho and you dip them in sour cream. You tried that before?
Oh, yeah.
Legit.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
It's the best snack ever. Yeah.
Oh, I love me some Doritos. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but potato chips, I'm just not a potato chip guy. Never really have been.
I'm a big chip guy, so like Doritos, potato chips, everything on that. And this is a really hard pick for me because I actually really enjoy all of these snacks. I used to eat popcorn as a meal in college. Like a bag of popcorn was like a meal in college.
I did too.
So,
we all did.
Yeah.
You could microwave it and it costs 25 cents.
So, are you a fan of spicy stuff? Oh, obviously spicy or nacho, but are you a fan of spicy stuff in general?
Love spicy food. Yeah.
So next time, I don't know if you've ever tried this before. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and we put salsa and hot sauce on everything. Hot sauce, Louisiana hot sauce on popcorn. Best snack ever. It's awesome.
What specifically a brand of hot sauce?
Louisiana, straight up Louisiana.
It's called
hot
Louisiana.
Sauce. Louisiana hot sauce.
I don't even think I've had that.
Oh my gosh! I will send you a bottle.
I put hot sauce and everything, so I could.
Oh yeah.
That's my kind of snack for sure.
What's your brand of hot sauce then? Is it like Frank's or like Tabasco or what do you like?
It depends. I have Frank's, Tabasco, Cholula, and then I'd probably have another 15 different hot sauces that I kind of rotate, just with smaller batch things.
I have 30 in my pantry, so
yeah,
I'm a big hot sauce guy.
Yeah, but Frank's Red Hot is it's an easy one. You throw it on cottage cheese. I put it on eggs in the morning. It's great.
I put hot sauce on cottage cheese too. I'm glad I am not the only person that. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah,
that is fantastic that we have that. Oh gosh, that just made my day, Jeff.
There's either hot sauce, either cottage cheese, hot sauce, or tahini. You ever use tahini on there?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good on cottage cheese as well.
Yeah. I do that too. I'll put in avocado, cherry tomatoes, cottage cheese, tahini, or hot sauce, and it's over. So Louisiana hot sauce, just to paint a similarity for you, Jeff, and I'll send you a bottle of it. But the viscosity of it is very similar to Frank's and Cholula, so it's a little thicker. and it has that more that richer feel. It's not as vinegary as like Tabasco or some of those other like really hot sauces that are a little bit more vinegar forward. It's definitely you get more. It does have vinegar in it, but it's a lot more. It has a lot more of that chili presence to it. So it's
I'll try it out. I love it. I love it. I got to do hot sauce because I'm starting to eat a little healthier food. I'm not perfect by any means, but cottage cheese, eggs. I mean, just anything that is a higher protein, lower carbs. I gotta work every day with my cousin Casey, and he makes a lot of I love him to death, but he makes a lot of fat jokes. So I'm a little insecure about my weight after working with him over the last 6 years, 7 years, or however long it's been. So
well, he's a former baseball player and athlete, man. So I mean, he's the guy works out for probably 15 minutes and he's got like the physique that he
he
does.
don't
Like
work
the
out.
rest of
He
it, the
doesn't
rest
work
of
out
us,
at all.
well, that's even worse, man. The rest of us
He
actually
just
have to work at it.
he just doesn't right. He doesn't gain weight. He eats twice as much as anybody. And he just
Must be
doesn't gain
nice.
weight. And I remember one time we were sitting at, and this was a serious conversation, but we were just talking about different things. We were at a restaurant traveling somewhere, and he looks at me and he says, "So Jeff, he's quite a bit younger than I am." And he says, "I got to ask you a question. So at what point in your life did your metabolism slow down?" But he said it. Yeah, but he can be a jackass and not even know he's being a jackass. He was trying to figure out, because we have some of the same genes, if at what age is his metabolism maybe
Oh,
going to
is he
slow
gonna
down.
shit because you're
That
older than him? Yeah,
that
okay. So
yeah,
it's a sincere question. It's just funny.
I think it was a sincere question, but I looked at him and I said, Are you fucking kidding me?" And he said, we both started laughing, and he goes, "Yeah, I guess I just called you fat." And I said, "Whatever."
This is a great time to mention. Casey is absolutely one, and I'm not just saying this to you, Jeff, because we're talking about him, but Casey is one of my favorite people in the industry that I've ever met, and I'm about 60% certain that Casey likes me too. But there's about 40% of me that just like lives in this like really bad self-conscious state of like I don't know if he does or not, but I mean I like him, so that's enough for me.
So what I can tell you is he that's what he does with everybody. So
Oh
if he
yeah,
likes you, he's going to tear you down a little bit too.
yeah.
Not like in a bad way or behind, but he's going to do right in your face.
Oh yeah,
And
totally
but
honest guy.
if Casey, if he don't like you, you would know it. There wouldn't be a maybe or you would just know. He's a little black and white on that. But he's a tremendous asset to our organization, and he's loved by a lot of people. So now we're blessed. Casey, and now we got Tony, my other cousin Tony. He came in, and he's doing a great job. We got Sam Ventura. It'd be great
Sam's
if
a
he
great rep.
changes. Yeah, if he could just change his last name, he'd be a better rep. If he changed his last name to Haugen, it'd be better. But he's family. I mean, he's going to be with us, forever. I hope he is. But the people we have in our organization are going to, we have all intention of them growing in the organization and doing great things together. So we're very blessed that we have the crew that we currently do, as small as it is. But we got to keep adding to that and finding more quality people as we go, and that's how you build companies, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jeff. That was our one must go segment, brought to you by United Cigars, featuring Louisiana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. So potato chips kicking to the curb. Interesting.
I feel like I crushed you a little bit. Like that.
This segment's fun.
Is that your favorite? Is that your favorite?
Yeah, it kind of is. I'm a chip guy. I'm a total chip guy. I mean, I devour popcorn and peanuts. It's like I said, it was really a difficult choice for me because I love peanuts. I'm a more mixed nuts person because I'm more of like Brazilian nut fan. I like almonds a little bit more than peanuts. I like getting the mixed nuts that are 50% less peanuts, so they're not like the entire jar isn't just peanuts.
How about walnuts?
I'm okay with walnuts, absolutely.
Yeah, walnuts are good.
Yeah, I mean, I know it would absolutely kill you because it, of what we were just talking about with penicillin. But I mean, a good walnut blue cheese salad, that's a great precursor to a great steak dinner.
Yeah. Well, everything but the blue cheese for
Right.
me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, really, really appreciate participation in that. So let's go into the second part of tonight's show. I wanted to turn back the sands of time a little bit, but before we went into the origin of you, no, we talked about a little bit the origin and the building of what Crux has become, but I wanted to go into the origin of you. But before we did that, I just wanted to kind of peel the curtain back for a couple of projects that I know were in the works. COVID-19 derailed a lot of things for a lot of companies, obviously, this year. But to my knowledge, there was actually, you guys were going to be adding to the Epicure line, right? There was going to be an Epicure Habano that was going to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so is that slated for 2021 or 2022, or has that been shelved for a future date because of COVID just screwing up everything for everybody?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, a lot of things did get put on hold. Um, once again, I mean, sales are a function of distribution, and when COVID hit, we have a we don't have a deep bench, and everybody's selling, uh, traveling and moving around. We're no longer traveling and moving around, so everybody was at home, and so there's a big difference in two things: trying to create new account opens, and then servicing your existing retail partners. And so, our company was fine. Our sales are fine with the retail partners that we had at that time, but without having a sales force moving around, we had a projected number of new account opens every week, and we just couldn't we couldn't hit that number. And so, to build bunch of new lines and that kind of stuff, not to mention the marketing expense of doing that. We needed to kind of trim. I don't want to call the marketing stuff, that certainly isn't fat, but we just kind of had to. It was kind of a let's wait and see. What's going to happen. And so
Right.
we're a small company that allows small companies are nimble. They can maneuver, and so we can make quick decisions, maneuver quickly, to do what's best, financially, economically for the company, and what's best for the people working in the company. And so there was a few things that were going to be all launched this year. Do Connoisseur, which will still happen most likely by the end of the year. That should hit retail shelves. Bull and Bear gets a new size.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. So those cigars are they've already been in production, and so you'll see those fairly soon.
Can you reveal the new size yet, or is it to be
Yeah,
determined?
it's a double Corona. It's a 7x54.
Oh, wow. Okay, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah. So that one comes out. The Epicure Habano. You know, the the blend was narrowed down to three different blends, and so I was in the process of kind of tweaking some of those blends. And so what's changed on that is, pre-COVID, I mean, Casey and I, or myself, or just Casey, but one of we were in the factory on a monthly basis, had been doing that for years. And so it becomes a lot more difficult when we're not in Nicaragua trying to finalize new blends. So we've got a lot of base blends, different things. We know the profile we want in the Epicure Habano, but it needed some tweaking. I'm comfortable that we're pretty close on that now, but it's a different process. Instead of sitting there at a table with somebody, bunching, rolling up cigars, you're testing them, you're making quick adjustments to those blends over the course of 2, 3, 4 days, however long we're there. Now, those cigars have to get sent, from Nicaragua to the U.S. They have to be sampled. Notes have to be taken.
Mhm.
You know, I make my adjustments on the blend sheet. Let's try this. Let's try this, and everything takes a little bit longer. So I'm still confident that that's going to happen, even if I don't get to Nicaragua here yet for the remainder of the year. I think we'll have that blend finalized very quickly. Then it has to go into production, and so they have to age. They have to do everything. So yes, it'll be a 2021 project.
Okay.
The artwork's completed. The files are built. for bands and our 5-packs and our cigar boxes and the visas. All that stuff is already put together. So now we just gotta get the cigars in production. So but we're not gonna rush it. So it's gonna be 2021. I mean, I'd say best case scenario it'll be most likely April of 2021, and our worst case scenario would be sometime in the fall of 2021. But I think we'll get there sooner than later.
Is it a Plasencia or Fernandez production?
I can't disclose that yet.
Okay, my apologies. So you guys had Crux is one of the companies that I've always enjoyed. There's a lot of companies that produce a product that's only available to IPCPR, now PCA attendees, and you guys always had the IPCPR edition. Not always, but it became a tradition. And we asked you about that last year with the name change. Is it going to be the PCA cigar or what? And you guys said that you were changing the name to the show. Which I loved because I'm a big fan of video games, especially baseball video games, and it reminded me of the game The Show.
Sure.
And so Casey and I had a chuckle about that, and so really like that. Obviously with no trade show this year, that project probably got shelved. But is that still in the works for if there's going to be a show in 2021 to release the show, the Crux the show?
Yeah, the show will be released every year from here on out. That blend's completed. The material, the build, filler binder wrapper for that cigar has been set aside for actually several years of production. So yeah, Terrific. We're good on that. Yeah. Terrific. And so, but the story of the show, I mean, it kind of, as I started off as a retailer, and the best part of being a retailer in the 90s when I started was going to the IPCPR show. It's really the only time I could learn about. We didn't have the internet back then, so for us to learn about what's coming, new cigars coming out, new brands coming out, you had to attend a trade show. And when you attended the trade show for the attendees, that's when you got free freight, you got some discounts, some limited editions that were available. Some manufacturers only open up X amount of new retailers, and so there was a huge advantage of going to the retail or the IPCPR, huge advantage. And over the years, because of access to information, the availability of information online, and cigar manufacturers, pushing out show deals prior to the actual trade show. And I get it. Everybody's fighting for dollars. They want to get those retailers dollars before they even hit the trade show. But so that cigar, the show, really kind of honored what I felt the industry was when I first got into the industry, and what that show really meant. And as you can see, as trade shows go, now you got to worry, without creating a major incentive to attend a trade show, you're going to have less attendance, you're going to have less excitement, and I feel like it's a disservice to the retailers. I mean, our job is as the retailer's job, as our job as manufacturers, is to create excitement. And if you've ever been, if a retailer's ever been to a trade show, when they come back for the next month, 2 months, they are excited. They're re-energized. It's not just about getting opportunistic buys on cigars. It's about learning. It's about learning from other retailers. It's it's that collective group getting together, and our common goal is to create a bigger pie, to create more cigar smokers in the industry. And I think the PCA, and I believe there's no doubt several people that are good in the PCA, but I think that always has to be the first topic. How do we create an amazing experience for the retailer, and how do we incentivize the retailers to show up so the attendance is there? And so until they set some guidelines for manufacturers on sending out show discounts and when you can send them out and all that kind of stuff, and I know it's tough, but that's just where the business has gone. And so I'm glad to see other manufacturers do that now, creating show only cigars, because it means something. It's really the only trade show we have. I mean, and we have TPE, which is doing a great job as well. but it's the one big show that we have to figure out how we're going to keep our business, learn about legislative issues, and grow the pie as a collective, right?
My father always taught me a phrase that he said never say never. It's a tired phrase. It wasn't a Bernie Duplessis original or anything, but he taught me a lot of. I as I get older in life, I always think about phrases that he said when I was younger, and I've used them throughout my life. So never say never is one of my dad's cliche phrases. But I mean, do you foresee Crux working with any other partnerships? The Placencia family, like you said, is family, and they helped you build your brand, and then now you've been able to partner with AJ, who's just been a catalyst for so many people and so many different companies, big and small, like yourself, and he's been just a true asset to this industry as a whole. But do you see Crux working with any other manufacturers in the future, or do you feel like you've got it set with what you've got?
Well, yeah, I would say, we're always looking for opportunity to build a better product, to build a better experience, and to enrich our brand and our product portfolio. So if that means incorporating additional manufacturing partners in the upcoming years, it's absolutely on the table.
Okay.
There's no doubt that the manufacturing partners that we have are very near and dear to us, and it would take a lot to derail those relationships we have. They truly are family to us, and but we want to continue to grow, and then you also want to make sure in manufacturing that you have options, right? For a number of different reasons, which I won't go into full detail, but you have to have options, and different manufacturers produce different tasting tobaccos. I mean, whether it's through their curing process or whatever they're doing to it, I won't go into detail on that either. But Esteli, Esteli Ligero isn't always necessarily just Esteli Ligero, right? It's not a commodity. I mean, everybody cures differently. Everybody's process is different.
Sure.
And the flavors are different, so, anyway, we'll continue to always look at new opportunities if it creates a better smoking experience for the end consumer.
So I want to go back to the beginning here, Jeff, and not to the beginning of Crux. We've already covered that a little bit, but I want to go back to the beginning of you and you're starting this business, because I love this story. Jeff, I feel like I'll know you in 20 years and you'll still look the same to me, which I can't believe you've been in the business as long as you have been. So Casey can lob the fat jokes all he wants. You still look like, I don't know. I feel like we're the same age, but I know you're older than me. But you've been in this business for quite some time, and you got into the brick and mortar business in 1992. I would love for my audience to hear this story about how you walked into a humidor one day and bought premium cigars, and then before you know it, you're a humidor. I don't want to steal the thunder, so please regale us, because I love this story.
Yeah. So, so you obviously heard it. So I don't know if I told it to you, if you heard it somewhere else, but, like anybody else, I mean, I was just, I was a fan of premium cigars. I hadn't smoked a lot of them. When I was growing up, I'd go bird hunting. I was smoking Swisher Sweets, and like anybody, and they never tasted good, but I just kind of like puffing on cigars, and I always liked the smell, even on those kind of things, and, but I had gone into a retail store in Minneapolis, and I'm looking around the humidor, and I'll never forget, one of the cigars I bought was an aged Dunhill Altamir's, and I think the price was $11 or $12. And I bought another cigar that was about $8. So, I'm walking out of there with two cigars for $20. So mind you, this is back in 1992, and I thought it was kind of a big swinging dick there with my two cigars for $20, right?
That's a lot of money back then, man. Absolutely.
Well, and I didn't have any money. So for me, it was, I mean, I mean, I was eating ramen noodles back then, so it was a lot for me to spend. And
Like taking a Jackson and lighting it on fire. Yeah, absolutely.
that's right. I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to burn up $20 in 2 cigars, but I had them in my hand. I was ready to leave the humidor, and this big guy comes in, trench coat. He's got a little nub, probably close to the size of this right here, sticking out of his mouth, and he walks in the humidor and he says, "You got any more of those Romeo and Juliet vintage?" And the guy working in the humidor, I'll never forget him, Roger Bell, just a sweet old man, very knowledgeable in cigars. And he worked at a couple of different stores in the Twin Cities area. And he says, "Yeah, I got, on the shelf here, I think I have 17, 18 cigars left, and I have another full box of 25 up on top." And I think those cigars were about, in Minnesota anyway, with the 35% tax back in that time, they were about $9 a piece. The guy in a trench coat says, "Perfect, I'll take them all." And my jaw dropped, and I'm looking at my 2 cigars, and this guy's buying, 40 some cigars. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe people spent that kind of money on handmade cigars. And so I was wowed. I was dumbfounded. And then even more surprising was Roger Bell's answer. He said, "Well, I'm not selling you all of them. I'll sell you the rest of this box, but I'm not selling you that full box up." And I dumbfounded again. This guy's turning down a multi-$100 sale. I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And so, and at that time, that's when Roger said, "Well, you know what? For some reason, people are starting to buy a lot more cigars nowadays, and they're kind of getting away from the pipes, and they're buying more cigars, or the pipe smokers are starting to smoke more cigars." And he was just telling this guy, he was trying to explain why he couldn't sell them, all of them, and they were just a little harder to come by. And so it just stuck with me, and I left there with my $20 in cigars, and I was smoking them, and I was enjoying them, and I wouldn't say the rest is history, but it definitely raised an antenna and awareness for what was happening early on. This is pre-cigar boom, and of course, it took a couple more years before the boom really hit and it really took off. But that was, I look for in anything that I do. I'm always looking for indicators, and I think if your antenna's up and you're paying attention, you're truly listening to people and what they're saying, there's gonna be a number of indicators, and that was one. And then I opened my first little retail store, 1992. It was in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and it was 2 weeks after I bought those cigars. I mean, literally 2 weeks after I bought those cigars. God. And I was driving down the street.
You impulse bought a cigar shop, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, right. So, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I saw the there was a storefront, said for lease, and I pulled my car over, and I was lucky enough with I had one of those big cell phones, and I called the number, and the guy says, "I own the building. I live upstairs. I'll be right down, and I'll show you the space." And so, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with the space. I just had to stop. And so I walk in. It had hardwood floors and antique brass fixtures for lighting. It had wainscoting, tin ceiling, and I'd never been to like an old Chicago style smoke shop, but for some reason, that's the first thing that popped in mind. So he says, "Well, what do you need the space for? What kind of business?" And I go, "I think I want to put a cigar store in here." And he looks at me and he goes, "Cigars? People still smoke cigars?" I said, "I think so. I think they're still smoking them." So, back then he says, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you think you want to give it a shot, you let me know. You don't have to decide right now. I'll put you on a month-to-month lease, $275 a month." And $275 a month. I mean, it's like even back then, it wasn't going to hurt me, and it was month to month. So he didn't commit me to a long-term lease. I spent several days building out the store myself, and I think I opened that retail store with 4 boxes of cigars. That's all I had. It's because my whole budget for store build out and inventory was about 10 grand, because that's about all the available credit I had on credit cards. Right. I mean, like I said, I was driving a $600, car with a broken back window. I mean, I didn't have much. And so, yeah, I opened that retail store. 10 months later, it was really it was picking up. but I knew this, I needed a bigger store in a different location. So I opened my second store, actually the same year out in the western suburbs of Minneapolis, and took out an SBA loan on that one. That's a long story in itself. I mean, I was turned down 25 different times from
Oh,
different
wow.
banks. I finally found a guy that was a preferred SBA lender, and I was tempered through that whole process of being told no, because it always came down to how are you going to collateralize your loan, and and I would always say, well, I just don't have much, and it would be end of story, and so. But once again, that experience really kind of tempered me, and I finally got in front of a guy that asked all the questions. I probably had at that point some good answers because I've been asked everything. Final question: how are you going to collateralize the loan? I said, well, I'll tell you what. I knew you were going to ask that question. I happened to print out a list of my assets. He goes, oh, perfect. So I slid over this piece of paper, and I got Volkswagen Jetta, value $650. I've got my stereo equipment and my I mean, I didn't have $4,000 worth of stuff, and he looked at me and he smiled and he goes, yeah, that's good. He goes, I'll get back to you. And I was going for a $250,000 loan at that time, and he says, I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. And I said, all right, well, I learned something in this one as well. So one of these guys is going to say yes. And he called me the next morning. He was the owner and the president of several banks. He goes, I don't know what it was, but he says, you made an impact. And he says, I think you're gonna do okay at this. I think you know what you're doing, and which I really didn't. But he says, I'm going to give you a shot. I'm approving your loan for $250,000.
Oh, wow.
Don't let me down. Rest was history in the retail in my retail career. So retail career has been good to me. But I'm also in a state in Minnesota where politically it doesn't favor tobacco premium cigars. So, for several years we were one of the highest in tobacco tax, and then we ultimately became the highest state for tobacco tax in the country. And so, going through 35% is tough enough, but then you get into tobacco tax at 70%, 95% on the wholesale value of a cigar. And I'll tell you, you learn real quick that it's a good experience. There were some tough years there. Years of not making money. Some years I had to put money back into the business, but we kept it going. And but you learn very quick that price doesn't mean anything, right? It does to some people, but cigar stores are it's about building a customer experience. It's about creating connections from one customer to the next, which builds community. And if you can successfully do that and just keep that in mind, the people want to give you their money, right? Even though it costs more, they'll give you the money, And so, that's, but I also knew in this state of Minnesota that I was not going to be able to expand our footprint in terms of, additional locations, because the tax was just far too high. And so, I had to make a decision. Am I going to stay in this business, or am I going to do something else? It was a crossroads back in 2005 when our tobacco tax doubled, and we had a floor stock tax. I had to close a retail store down at the time. They were tough years. But that 2005 is what planted the seed. And I said, if I'm going to be in this business, what do I want to do? So I started notably new and asking a lot of questions and learning everything you can. I have a lot of great mentors in this industry, a lot of manufacturers that have been very transparent in how they built their companies, and here's some landmines to avoid, so I'm very fortunate for that. But it took several years for me to finally say, all right, now I need to get a plane ticket, go to Nicaragua, and really start learning, right? But it took money to do that too, so I needed some time to recover from 2005, and like I said, the rest is kind of history. That's when I started going down in 2012, and and it was tough. I mean, it was tough getting going, but once again, we're in a great business. Everybody's willing to help everybody,
Right.
and I had you know, I had the Placencia family that, you know, they did everything for me. I mean, they made it really easy. They put a whole team together, and they do that with all their clients. You know, I mean, they're very gracious people, and I've learned a lot from them. You
Mhm.
know, and then, you know, I remember when I was building the Limitada cigar, the Crux Limitada, the PB5, and you know, uh, I happen to be, you know, used to spend a lot of time with Skip Martin, uh, you know, back in the day. And I told him I had this great wrapper I wanted to try on this project, and we were smoking a couple of samples. I said, but it's kind of flat, and I said, sorry, any recommendations? And he goes, you know what? Let me come to the factory. Let me help you out. And he did. So we sat there. He picked up some binder that he had, you know, from his factory. He said, let's try this. Let's try that. And so the PB5 is really actually just, it honors, you know, Skip Martin for his help on that cigar, you know, and I know he doesn't take a lot of credit for it, but, you know, he's a big reason that cigar is a success, you know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's, you know, there's a lot of people like him that, um, have really reached out, and they help people, right? They pay
Right.
it forward. They have their own successes, and they pay it forward. I mean, um, you know, I think there's some manufacturers that feel like every new manufacturer that comes on is trying to take a piece of the pie, or a piece of their pie, and that's not necessarily the case. If we just continue to work together as an industry, like I said before, it's the whole. And Nestor and I talk about this often. You know, how do we grow the pie? How do we make a bigger pie so everybody has a big fat piece? You know, there's enough to go around for everybody, but we
Sure.
just, you know, we need to create more cigar smokers. You need to really introduce premium cigars to people that have never just had the opportunity to enjoy it. You know,
Right.
and you do that through great brick and mortar retail. You know, you take some of these new stores that have popped up around the country, and they are offering a tremendous experience, you know, a great customer experience when you walk through the door. That builds the pie, you know, that grows the pie. So that's our job is in this business, is to just grow that pie.
So I want to go back for a second to the president of this bank, because Jeff, you know, like I said earlier, there are things about you that I don't know, but one of the things that I do know, and then it's been revealed to me in our conversations, is how intensely loyal you are to your staff at Tobacco Grove, to the people that brought you to where you are today, the Placencias and AJ, your gratefulness to people like Skip. Did that foster with that president taking the chance on you, or is it something much deeper than that?
Well, you know, I mean, that's a great question. And nobody's ever asked that question, but you know, I think I didn't think there was any. I didn't think there was any chance after that meeting that I was getting a loan. Um, but once again, I needed to continue to learn, and if I needed to work for more years to just raise cash and build assets to collateralize a loan or whatever it is, I was willing to do it, you know. But he is a guy that gave me a shot. He gave me a chance, and so yeah, I was forever grateful to that guy. Without him, or without him saying yes, um, you know, I wouldn't be here today. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm extremely loyal to a guy like that, and you know, and that guy was great. Man, before he ultimately sold to a bigger bank and he retired, but you know, I would have our, you know, they obviously serviced that loan, so from time to time, I would meet with him, and um, you know, and that's the other thing in this business, you know, that yeah, so guys like him definitely foster, I think, how I view people, and how helpful people are, how kind
Mhm.
people are. And you know, we're fortunate we're in a cigar business, right? And so I, you know, you could pick any other type of retail uh, business. Let's say you're in the appliance business. Well, you know, some people get excited about buying appliances, but if your washing machine just broke and you got to spend a couple $1,000s on a new washing machine, sometimes you're not overly excited about spending that money. But in a cigar retail environment, you always have, you know, customers come in, they're happy to be there, they want to spend money, and you get to have real conversations with people. And so I've been very fortunate to have mentorship from a number of different people over the years. um, and you know, they all kind of say the same thing, you know, because I always say, well, what can I do to, you know, they sit down for hours with you, talking about this and that, and
Mhm.
how to structure business and how to build process and how to build the right formula for success. And I'd say, how can I repay you? I mean, they all say just got to pay it forward, give it to somebody else. And so, as I get older, I think about that a lot, and I try to talk to young business owners and or other retailers for that matter. And if I can help, I'm going to help. If it's I'm a young brand owner, but but I've talked to a couple other brand owners that are very young when I started, and whatever I could do to help them out, I would. And that's just the type of industry we have, and that's what makes it so great.
I think that's a perfect segue to my next question about it. So we've talked a lot about the great people that have helped you along the way. The president of the Spank, Nestor Plasencia and his family, AJ Fernandez and his, Skip Martin, another gentleman that we haven't mentioned tonight, but he was the beginning of the legendary Nymphomaniac, later became the Nympha. Brooks Winningham of Half Wheel was the
Yep,
one that gave you the idea about doing a Nympha, right?
100%. Yep.
So do you look for inspiration from those close to you? I mean, you work with family, as we've talked about as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's only one way of doing things, and that's the best way you can possibly do it. And uh, I fully believe in the collective input. And you mentioned Brooks. I mean, he can't. And he and I were in the factory together down in Nicaragua at Plasencia, and we were just sitting there, and he just said, "Hey, you ever thought about doing a nympha?" And I said, "I don't even know what that is." I mean, I didn't at the time. I didn't know what it was, and nobody was in the U.S. was producing a nympha-sized cigar.
Right.
And so so we talked about it. He goes, "Yeah, and maybe do a perfecto or tapered ends," and we just talked about it a little bit. And we had him produce some cigars. And what was great about that cigar is, let's face it, in the grand scheme of things, Lanceros, smaller ring gauge cigars, and I'm not talking cigarillos, but longer, thin cigars like Lanceros, Slim Panatellas, and it isn't going to be one of your top selling SKUs in a portfolio of any brand for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Nympha, and we call it the Nymphomaniac because it had the perfecta, and the tapered ends. But what that cigar did for us, it gave us a lot of attention out of the gate, right off the bat. People were like, "What is that?" And we would even hear from other brand owners that walked through the Plasencia factory, the La Cathedral in Esteli, and they'd say, "Well, I mean, that's the cigar that everybody saw. Like, what is that? Tell us about that cigar." And then Plasencia said, "That's their cigar. We're not rolling that cigar for anybody else.
Oh,
That
wow.
shape, nothing."
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, So as far as drawing inspiration, absolutely. I mean,
Terrific.
everybody has a completely different set of life experiences, and um, you know, and that's what's fun. That's fun about our business. That's fun about having a cigar. You and I can sit down outside of this show, and in an hour, I'm going to learn a lot about. You're going to be expert at something, right? And everybody is. Everybody's expert, uh, and passionate about three things. You talk to anybody for 5 minutes, you're going to find out what one of those three passions are. Sometimes it's their wife, sometimes it's their kids, sometimes it's their business. Could be a hobby. They hunt, they golf, they fish, whatever it is. You're going to find out they may do barbecue. I mean, you don't know, but within a
Mm-hmm.
very short period of time, if you're having real conversation with people, they're going to be passionate about something. And when people are passionate about it, most people, myself included, and everything else in life, we kind of live in mediocrity. But the things we're passionate about occupies 80 to 95% of our time and our effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
it's really fun to find out what passions are of different people and what they like to do, and then learn from it, right? And that's what's great about having a cigar with somebody.
I could not agree more. So, Jeff, I was having this discussion with somebody, and I brought this up, and because we were talking about the byproduct of the cigar boom and the brands that have stood the test of time, that were born in the boom. We talk about the Rocky Patels, Alec Bradley, Lito Gomez with La Flor Dominicana, and there's others. Those are some of the bigger names, right, that kind of float to the top of the surface for sure. And my point to the gentleman that I was speaking with was that that Crux is a boom brand, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Crux started 7, 8, 9 years ago." And I said, "Well, Jeff got his start in 1992, which is technically pre-boom, if you really want to get technical about it. But I mean, you built your foundation
right
during the boom, and so I said, if the boom hadn't happened, if Jeff hadn't paved his business and made his way through that time, Crux never happens, and so I said, so Jeff Haugen is a not necessarily Crux, but Jeff Haugen is a boom baby. When you were around during those times, can you add to that? Do you think that that's a fair assessment, or am I wrong?
Well, as you mentioned, you call it pre-boom. I'm still going to call it boom, even though it was 1992. There was definitely things firing up in the industry. There was a newfound enthusiasm, excitement in the cigar world, right? The boom for me was, I mean, they were crazy times, like everybody can, talk about. That was, a retailer at that time, or even an end consumer. I mean, as fast as you got cigars off the truck that were delivered, they were going right out the door, and humidors, and but it was also before the internet. And so if you wanted to buy a humidor, a cutter, a lighter, a leather cigar case, you had to go to your local store. And the stores that made the investment in the inventory were doing extremely well. And even the stores that didn't make that investment were having the best years they've ever had. But I think the boom, and you mentioned some brands that, and all those brands went through some major changes. I mean, La Flor Dominicana was Los Libertadores, right? And Los Libertadores, it was all Connecticut wrapped cigars. They're very mild. And look where they're at today. I mean, they've made a lot of adjustments over the years, including the name.
Fuller body cigars. Alan Rubin was Bogey Stogies before he was Alec Bradley.
Bogey still, and I remember buying cigars from Alan Rubin in a 10-foot booth. And, he was buying, different cigars out of Dominican Republic, and he was wholesaling for $1 a piece. I mean, he was selling inexpensive bundles. I mean, everybody made their start somewhere. Rocky Patel, Rocky always had a lot of success traveling around from store to store, and he could sell a lot of cigars, but it wasn't really until 2000, 2001, with the vintage and then the edge and all that his company really took off, so it seems like it's a pretty consistent story from most people that start brands. They start off and there's some rough years, but then you kind of figure it out, you make your adjustments, and you push forward. And so, but the boom also taught me that, if you're not careful, it can all come crashing down pretty quickly as well.
Sure.
And so that's why you talk about foundation. That's why foundation is so important. And I've seen a lot over 28 years of being in the business. I've seen a lot of companies come and go. Companies that threw a lot of money at a marketing plan and all sorts of things. And 2 years later, they're gone. I've seen, but it was just a different time. People were buying everything, and now, and now, there isn't a lot of room for error in our industry as a brand owner, like I think there used to be. Number one, there's a lot of people reviewing cigars, right? I mean, a lot of them. There was one before, it was Cigar Aficionado, and now, and then it was Smoke, and then, now you got a number of different magazines, you got a number of different online reviewers, you have social media influencers, you have people. I mean, information travels very quickly and often, and so your cigars have to perform. The quality just has to be there. And if you're a larger company and you have some manufacturing issues or some quality control issues on a large batch of cigars, it's survivable, right? For a young brand, it's hard to survive that. So, I think, we move forward not being worried about making mistakes. I mean, every company is going to make mistakes along the way, but we sure put the time and effort into making sure things are right, like you mentioned before, because
Awesome.
we just know everything we're building could come crashing down. And so we'll take our time, and as long as we keep moving forward, and we incrementally build our business, which we do every day, week by week, month by month, year by year, I think we're going to be around for some time.
Jeff, this is the time of the night where I always thank my guest for the amount of time that they give me. Sunday night is, even with COVID going on and travel is not necessarily as frequent as it was pre-COVID. This is a family day. As you mentioned, you were out with family before you decided to sit down with me tonight, and I really appreciate the time that you've given me. So I have a few more questions for tonight, but as we're winding down and wrapping up here, I definitely want to let you know how much I really appreciate this time away from family to sit down and bring my audience and me some great insights into what Crux is doing and part of your story. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's mutual. You're away from your family right now too.
Well,
even though you're pretty close.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're not too far away, but they are.
They're
asleep.
Probably sleeping.
They are asleep. They are asleep. So, so this is a question I've been dying to ask you, though. To turn back the sands of time a little bit. You were in the retail shop in the mid '90s, and what you've asked retailers who don't know Crux from any other brand, or from your start. Now you've kind of made a name for yourself, and I would venture to say that if a tobacconist is even half-assed into the industry, they've heard of Crux at the very least at this point. But when that question that you were asking for people to take a chance on you, who was the Crux brand, quote unquote Crux brand, that you took a chance on and you're glad you did in your early days?
As a retailer, Perdomo. Yeah, Nick Perdomo. I was in the business, he was building cigars in a little strip mall off of Flagler Street in Miami. And I'll never forget it, I've got a connection with him, I've always had a connection with him because of that time we spent way back in the day. And he had, two brands, San Jose and La Tradicion. And I got on a plane and I went down. I spent a few days with Nick and got to know him. First time I saw him, he was wearing some like zebra Zubas or something, and I thought, well, it can't be that guy. It was Nick, but now he wears suits, but back then he wore Zubas, yeah, it's true. He could, but he's just another one of those guys. And, and I saw Nick not too long ago, and he's just another one of those guys that sits down and goes, okay, here's what you got to do. Here's where you need a rep. Here, here's some, like I said, some pitfalls to avoid. But, I think, and Alan Rubin, the same thing. Like Alan Rubin is actually like, he's like a brother to me. And he's definitely like family. I've spent a lot of time together over the years, and he's given me some great mentorship. And I remember when he got started and came into the business. And so, but I did what I could in finding retailers to buy product from him, and so he could grow his business. And, and all that stuff kind of goes full circle. I mean, right. The Patels, Rocky and Nish Patel, like family, and it's just not even a question. These guys that you support, it all comes around. We support them because these brands, because they make great product and they're good people and they're good for the industry.
It's nice to know you didn't hold Rocky being a Packers fan against him. So that's pleasant. So
yeah, well, in Minnesota, it's pretty close. A lot of people love the Packers in Minnesota because they're so used to the Vikings not getting to a Super Bowl, So, and I've been to a Packers game with Rocky before, in Lambeau. But yeah, I don't know. Does that kind of answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, it's a small industry, but it all comes around. And now that I'm on the other side, I mean, definitely my focus is it's my entire focus is Crux. I mean,
Hmm.
the retail store I have, um, I have no plans opening additional retail stores. I mean, it's just, I've got a great staff that runs that operation, and it gives me a good pulse on what's going on in the industry, keeps me connected to the other brands, allows me to go to, the TAA convention, and, it really see, stay connected with these vendors on the retail side of things, I'll always have it, but no plans of competing against anybody. And, even you take, Crux, Crux at Tobacco Grove can't be sold online, so, I mean, I really want to make sure that we protect our retail partners, right? We,
Right.
we protect, we protect our price points, that the retailers are following the price points. We don't sell through all the catalogs, um, and it makes a huge difference. And so that's, because this industry does not exist without good brick and mortars, retailers. And, yeah, you can get some big checks from the catalog companies, but without those experiences and those connections and those communities all across the country, industry, the pie doesn't grow, the
Hmm.
industry doesn't grow. And it's so important for people to, support their local brick and mortar, you know.
You mentioned amazing people in that question, in that answer to that question, Jeff. But I'm always, Nick Perdomo is one of those very fascinating people in this industry. He's very interwoven in and strategically in a lot of different pathways, in a lot of retailer stories. He's a key player in Two Guys with David Garofalo. He helped Drew Estate get born. And I mean, the Drew Estate that we know today does not exist without Jonathan Drew getting help from Nick Perdomo early on. And he's one of the most fascinating people in this industry, because you wouldn't know it, because it's not a story that is part of a lot of the fabric of the backgrounds of a lot of these brands. It's not that they're trying to dismiss him or anything like that, but I think that's part of his nature. He comes across a certain way, I think, which I think is incorrect, frankly, because he has helped, and he's very, like I said, he's very interwoven in a lot of people's stories, and you're another example of that. So
Yep,
I found
absolutely.
that answer very interesting. So the I had a list of kind of the obligatory questions here, Jeff, but I want to boil it down to one as far as current events. The cancellation of the trade show. We talked about how that put aside the show being released this year, for not being released this year for the first time in a while. Um, and and of course the furloughs, which were, I'm sure heartbreaking to a lot of people in this industry to hear. They're starting to bring back some of their staff and everything. But I want to end the obligatories on a positive note here. And instead of focusing on that, I want to focus on the most recent decision, with basically the substantial equivalence being basically put on hold indefinitely. With the latest decision from the courts and judgment of basically saying that the FDA failed, and I love hearing that word, failed to represent their position and of why premium cigars needed to be regulated when they had no business regulating in the first place, and they didn't have the FDA even admitting that they don't have the resources to regulate it the way that they put out there in
Right.
this 600-page obnoxious document that they did in the deeming regulations. So with this latest decision and this has to be just, I mean, you guys had to be popping champagne bottles and doing backflips over this. I mean, this has to open up so many doors for Crux, because, I mean, while you do have predicate blends, Crux was founded post 2007. So this has to be just a huge win for you guys.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were in position either way. Like, if we, what, obviously the expense of testing, and for us, of course, would be all of our brands, and we of course increased our SKU list back in 2016 in August, before that deadline. I believe it was August 8th. But um, we increased our SKU list substantially, um, just anticipating And we lined up all of our SKUs with predicate blends. Another, benefit and advantage of working with manufacturing partners that did have predicate blends, and so we were prepared to substantially or to test for substantial equivalence. And once we knew exactly how that all had to play out, but so with that list we had, I mean, we have brands and blends and projects that have been in the works for quite some time, and technically a lot of them have already been shipped to retailers. So yeah, I mean, it's listen, any win we could get in our industry is huge. And it doesn't mean that it's not going to come back, right? That can change overnight, right? I mean, it's a huge win right now, but we're still going at it as we're going to do everything we can, do it the right way, and if something changes in the future where it goes back to having to test all these products, I mean, we'll be prepared for it. So, but yeah, absolutely, and it kind of frees you up, and you know, it takes some pressure off, certainly, because that's the first thing you think about every day when you wake up. And and that's a tough thing that retailers go through too. Like if you deal with high taxation or over regulation and anything, you should be able to be in a business where you can wake up every day and figure out how you're going to move your business forward, how you're going to offer a better product or service, how you're going to just build a great company. But regulation and high taxation is the only thing you think about, and you spend more time working on those issues than actually building a real company. It also allows us, at least for the foreseen future over the next 2 to 3 years, to stay on track in building a sales force, and knowing that money will be there to build that sales force. So yeah, we couldn't be more excited, at least right now. But we're still cautious. Things can change. I've seen it.
Terrific. Well, Jeff, I really, again, thank you so much for your time. I have one final question for you. This is our curveball segment, and so I mean, this question is a little tongue in cheek, and we had a little fun at his expense, and as we mentioned, his sense of humor definitely pokes fun at us on occasion too. So, my question to you for the curveball segment is: we know now that Casey and Tony, both of which you are related to, are members of the Crux family. So my question to you is: did you hire the right Haugen first?
That's a loaded question that I'll have to deal with. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, where I'm really blessed is getting to work with my family. I mean, Casey and Tony, obviously cousins. I mean, so my dad, Casey's dad, and Tony's dad, they're all brothers, right? So that's how we're cousins. And so, but my parents divorced at a young age. I didn't grow up knowing these guys, right? And I'd see them once in a long while, once every 5, 6, 7 years. I'd see them at one family function, and they were younger than I was. Mm-hmm. So, but what happened as they got older is they actually reached out to me. Casey kind of reached out when he was done with baseball. Hey, what's going on? And Tony's always been there too. He's always kind of reached out, and so as we became adults, they're the ones that have really reached out to me. And so, I'm really honored to have them. Tony was going down a different path, and career-wise, Casey had just finished up baseball, so he was looking for something to do. And then so Casey got a good base knowledge, and then he went off and took another position running a golf company in Las Vegas, which he had a tremendous amount of success. He learned a lot. He's always had a drive, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. And
very clear.
So so everything I learn, I try to pass on through Casey. Everything. I try to have them there when I'm blending. I try to, supply chain, inventory management. I just, you know, I try to make sure that if something happens to me, we're building a company for generations, right? So if something happens to me, you can't just keep it all up here. You either have to write it down or you have to have somebody else that knows it as well, if not better than you. And Casey's doing a phenomenal job, and he proves himself every day when he wakes up. Tony's a relatively new addition, and he he worked in my retail operation for a while just to kind of get a base knowledge. But he's been killing it. I mean, he is just he's one of those guys. You meet him, he can talk to anybody. He's got a smile on his face. He's just a super guy. And we're just so lucky to have him. Now Sam came on a little bit earlier because before COVID, so he had a little time to move around his territory. But Tony came on, and 2 weeks later, I said, nobody's traveling. Everybody's got to make calls from home. And for 6 months, everybody was at home, not traveling. And so they've only been traveling again for the last couple of months, So yeah, I definitely made the right call. But the guys we have right now, we have plans for each one of those guys, right? So, I've got a plan for Casey. I got a plan for Tony, and a plan for Sam. And Casey and I talk about a lot. I mean, these guys are going to be the pillars of our business and our future success. We're not just hiring a sales guy. I mean, we want all these guys to grow through the company and be the company, right? And
awesome.
So we're really lucky. Now it's just finding the next person and then the next person. So we're actively looking to hire 2 more people, somebody to cover the Southwest territory and somebody to cover maybe the North East territory. And if we could get those hires by the end of the year, it'd be great. But we're not going to rush it. If we can't get them, we can't get them.
Right.
But so if you know anybody, let me know.
Well, I may have, but just to kind of touch on Tony for a second, it's interesting that Tony is a quote unquote recent hire, because I actually met Tony a couple of trade shows ago, and he was actually in your booth, and so that when he quote unquote got hired on as this new employee, it seemed bizarre to me. I was like, isn't Tony a part of the company already? Because when I met Tony in the booth a couple of years ago, I guess he wasn't a formal part of the company, but the ownership that he took of the brand as he was kind of talking to me about certain things was clearly evident. And that's why it was kind of shocking to me that this was a quote unquote recent hire. And because he has it, and as I asked this question a little tongue in cheek, as I mentioned, and I wasn't necessarily casting aspersions on anyone in particular, but because I do have, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a great respect for Casey, as I know that you know, and his ownership of the process and of Crux as well is evident in the way he walks and talks and carries his business too. That mission that you have of passing along everything and instilling it in these people that work for you, Jeff, it's accomplished. The mission is accomplished because this is, I when I talk to Casey, I feel like it's just as much his company as it is yours. And I got that feeling with Tony as well. And you mentioned Mark Dom earlier, who was really involved with you guys before. Mark had that too about him. So it's clearly when you invest in people, you invest in the right people, and you invest in people who buy in. And it's in the case of Casey, and I'll say for Tony as well, it's more than even a buy-in. It's ingrained in them. This is they take ownership of Crux and the mission that you set forth. So I think, I mean, well done and kudos to you on all accounts, because they're exactly what you have set out and what you were just saying.
Well, I'm lucky. It comes down to the people, though, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, they all see where we're going. We all want to get there together. We all want to grow together, and we have fun. I said that to Casey a long time ago. I said, once this isn't fun anymore, I'm out. But I don't plan on that happening. I plan on us having fun all along the way. Now, this year's obviously screwed up for everybody, not just our company. It's screwed up for everybody. So So it changes things. But like I said, we're a small company, so we're nimble. We make our adjustments. We've made adjustments through the pandemic. We'll continue to make them, and we'll survive. And we're doing well. And so,
Terrific.
but it's absolutely we got, like I said, we got a small group of guys right now. We hope to expand that, but these guys, you're right. I mean, and I feel they are my partners, right? I mean, they are owners of the company. They and someday they probably will all have ownership, like true ownership in the company, like an equity stake. That's what I want for them all, right? I mean, I want it for everybody and for their families, because then that's what gets fun. If we can grow it together, we can all succeed together. Everybody's going to benefit. And
Absolutely.
So that's the plan.
Absolutely. Jeff, as I close out here, if you wouldn't mind staying on just for a couple more minutes when we close up here, but I do want to thank our entire audience for staying with us tonight. I want to thank you for being my guest of honor tonight. Absolutely tremendous to finally sit down with you on this show and just and talk to you a little bit about your story, about your path, about what Crux is going, where it's been. Just an absolute honor for me. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I sincerely appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
So for everyone out there, I do really appreciate everything. Thanks for tuning in for tonight. This was our 140th take. I really do appreciate all the likes, shares, and comments as we kind of went along here. Be sure that you download, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please download, subscribe, and review. And if you already are a subscriber, I encourage you to unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe. That helps my numbers so that I can continue to have great people like Jeff on my show. So please do that. And you can always check us out on Facebook where we were broadcasting this live broadcast. ELOSOFUMAR, our group, our upcoming guest is listed there for you, including next week's guest, George Rami of Camacho Cigars will be my guest for our 141st take. You definitely want to stick around for that next Sunday. We'll see you then. And also our YouTube page, ELOSOFUMAR, as well. But again, thank you for our entire audience tonight on behalf of me and Jeff. We really do appreciate it. For everyone out there, this was our 140th take. I've done 140 of these. This is fantastic. And amazing. This has been incredible. So incredible ride. Congrats. So thank you, sir. For everyone out there from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas, I'm your host as always, Bear Duplessis. As always, guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.